So now the client is the different story. Right now, on the dashboard page, what we have here, we connect this dashboard page with our Redux store, and we have all the books from it, and then we check. So if book's length equals 0, then we display this call to action stuff. But we never actually do any kind of request to the server to get books, right? So it's false information here. So the first thing that we need to do is to make this request to get all the books and then display either call to action or shelf of books. And we're gonna introduce shelves later as well, because that's a very important concept here. Okay, so for that we need to convert this to the class component. So we'll have class that extends React component. And here we'll have render. Inside of this render we'll have constant, and I'm just gonna copy this thing, cut it and paste it here from this props. And then we'll have return, and we'll just copy and just shift this into here. And I just let Prettify do its job. It's amazing. So now we have the class component, and we can define component.mount. And inside of it, we can make the request. Actually, let's do it a little bit differently this time. So it's maybe a good practice to actually extract the initialization into separate function and call it from component.mount, or component will receive props. So we'll have on init. You can name it as you like. And that's function that takes props. And that will do all the things. So in our case, we want to fetch books. So we'll have props.fetch books. So, and component.mount is just going to be this on init, this props. And we pass props, so we can reuse this on init, for example, in component will receive props. So now this fetch books is the thunk action at last. So now we are again going to make thunk actions, because we need to get the data and place it into our Redux store afterwards. So let's import it. Fetch books from actions books. We do not have it yet, but we will have in a minute. Then we need to connect it here. Fetch books. And we need to add it to prop types. Fetch books is the function. Okay, done. Good. So now we need to define these fetch books. So let's go to actions, books.js, and let's define thunk action, fetch books. It doesn't take anything here. It has the dispatch. And here we'll have the API, books, fetch, just fetch, or fetch all. Let's call it fetch all. It will get us the books. And these books we want to place into our Redux store. So we need to dispatch action that we call books fetched. And we need to pass books into it. But we will use normalized state. We will normalize this book's data, and then we pass it down to the action, and action will just pass it down to the reducer. So we'll use normalizer for it. Again, I will not get into much detail about it because I don't want to bog us down, but you will see how it works, and you can read through the documentation to get a grasp of it. Or you can just wait for my course on Redux. So let's import API from API. First of all, let's go to API here, and let's create another field here, books. And fetch all is going to be the axis get API books, and that's it. Then we have books, and then we have response, and we'll just get response data books. Okay. So now in books here, we'll have this books fetch. So let's define const books fetched. Simple pure Redux action. It returns the type that is books fetched, and we pass down data into it. So this data is going to be normalized data, and a little bit later we'll see how it looks like. So, but basically it looks like, spoiler alert, data, entities, and the name of the entity that we have here is books. So that's what is going to be passed to the reducers. I will keep this comment for now here. Okay, so we need to import the books fetched from types. So now we need to go to types and let's add books fetched into here. Okay. We don't care about this export because we're going to add another export here pretty soon. Okay, so now let's normalize this data. And unfortunately, we will not see anything right now because we do not have books, but in a moment we'll have our first book in the database. So for normalization here, we do not pass the books that we return from the server, but instead we normalize this. And we'll do it, I will just create it for a better, so you can see better what's going on. So we'll use normalize, and to normalize we pass the data itself, and then the schema that we want it to be normalized against, and it's the book schema. But we have an array of books, so we'll have an array book schema. Like this. So we need to install normalizer. So let's go to terminal here and we'll yarn add normalizer. Okay. So now here we'll just import normalize from normalizer. And now we need to define schemas. So we'll define it in one file. We'll have book schema, or we import it from schemas. And let's create the schemas file, .gs. And schemas are very simple. So we just import schema from normalizer. And then we export const the book schema, book schema. And that equals to new schema.entity. And we pass several parameters to it. Usually all you have to do is just to pass the pluralized form of it, so books, for example. But in our case, as we use MongoDB, MongoDB uses this _ID, but by default normalizer uses the ID. So we need to provide this option. So for that, the second parameter is an empty options, and the third one is ID attribute equals to ID. So this is our schema. Good. Now we need to go to our reducer. We'll go to books reducers. Here, let's import books fetched from types. And here we'll add case books fetched. And that's the beauty of normalized thing. So for adding new items to the reducer and for updating items, we just use the same code because we all the time we have this data, entities, books. And the books itself is not an array, it's a hash. So we just merge them and that's it. So we'll have this state and then we'll have the action, entities, books, hash. So this this way we merge them. So in the beginning we have just this state, the empty object. So we merge it with the books. We have books. If we add another book, so we'll have in a state just one book with hash, and we just merge it, and it appends to the hash that we already have. Okay. So that should do it. It works. In Redux we still have the same thing. Books is an empty object. Nice. We did a lot of job, but we haven't changed anything, right? But that's a good necessary groundwork. So now here in the dashboard page, we have books and we're making the request. Let's have a look. Yeah, so we did a lot of things. So if we go to the dashboard, we have an error. I missed something. Oh no, API books internal. Oh yeah, so we're making the request and we have 500 error. So let's have a look. And yeah, I knew it. Yeah. So this spread operator is not available to us. We need to install Babel plugin for it. So yarn add Babel plugin, and the name of this plugin is, I'm gonna look up. I looked it up. So the name of this plugin is Babel plugin transform object rest spread. I can never ever remember it. And after we install it, we go to the editor, to our API code, go to Babel RC, and here define plugins and add it here as well. So transform object rest spread. So now this functionality is available on the server as well. So let's have a look. I'm gonna reload the page. And no. Still not good enough. Let's reload. And let's try it again. Okay. So, candidate books of undefined. Action data, yeah, action data. But yeah, we're gonna fix it. So here, books. And you can see that books is an empty array. So our request works, but I messed up in reducer. So here, of course, we have data. So we have action, data, entities, books. Data because in actions here, we call it data right here. So it could be anything. I prefer just to use data because it's more generic in this way. Okay, so let's try it again. Hopefully this time it's gonna work. And in Redux, you can see that we have books fetched action. And this action didn't do anything because we have empty books for now. And that's why we see this stuff here. So now let's add new book. And to add new book, I think we can do that right now almost. We just need to go to the new book page here. So, and after we can't. We have add book. So here, instead of this console.log, we need to add book. And for that, we need to dispatch new action. So here we'll have this props dot create book. And we pass book data into it. So we'll have book and we'll have book. And then if everything's go well, we have this props dot history dot push, and we push it to dashboard. Okay, so now we need to define all of this thing. So first of all, let's start with definitions. So ptdef. So we define the prop types. The first one is create book. That's the function. And the second one is the history. We already did it. So it's a shape. And inside of this shape, we have push, which is function. So we need, of course, to include prop types. And then we need to connect this, this component so we can pass this action to it. So let's connect. Here we'll have the connect. We do not need to pass anything from here, but here in dispatch we provide the create book. Okay, so the create book itself is we're going to take it from create book. We take from actions books. So back to actions. Here we define another thunk action. So we'll have thunk action, create book. Let's call it data. We need to have dispatch. We have API.books, and we call it, let's just create, and we pass data to it. At the result, we'll have book, and again we do the same thing. We dispatch book created action. We normalize the response with book, and the schema is not the array anymore, so we just provide book's schema. So now we need to create it, so let's just copy this thing here. So that's gonna be book created, and here as well, book created. And we need to import it from types, book created. So let's go to types. Book created. Okay, And that's pretty much it. So we need to go to API now, and let's add create. It takes data, it takes book, and we do access post API books, and we pass book to it, and then we have response, and we get data book from it. Now we need to go to reducer. Let's import book created. And now we just add this case, book created, to the reducer. But the code is absolutely the same. Whether we create new book and add it to collection, or we reset the collection usually, that's the same. And if we update books, one book in this hash, also the same code, because we have normalized state. And we'll see how it looks like in a moment. So now let's try to create one. So let's, my favorite book, 3 Men in a Boat. 3 Men in a Boat, we choose it, we save it, we redirect it, and you can see that we do not have this call to action anymore because we have books in our state. First of all, we have this book created, and this book created actually populated the Redux store with this book data, as you can see here. And then we made, when we redirected to the dashboard, we made another request to the server, like a background server request to fetch all the books, all the rest of the books. So, and here it is, but nothing changed because there's the same collection of the books. And here what we have in our books collection, books hash. So just for fun, let's have a look how this normalized state looks like. So for that, let's go to action, and for example, here when we make this fetch books, I'm gonna copy. Let's do it like this. Okay. So instead of dispatching, we'll just console.log it, normalize. And now you can see how it looks. So as you can see here, we have entities, and inside of this entities, we have books entity, and inside of this, we'll have hash of object. So ID, and then by this ID, we have an object. So we have a small database. Also, there is the result, but I rarely use this result for some reason. And that's how it looks. So let's just go back to normal stuff. Okay, so we actually achieved almost everything that I planned for this session. We request books from the server. We save books in the database. That's cool. Another thing that I want to do right now, the last thing, is to add this add new book as the element of the top navigation. Because I need a way to add other books, but I do not need to have this big call to action, because what I want actually is just to display the books with progress, and that's it. I do not need any kind of additional noise into it. So, and right here, we'll just type something out for now. And in the next session, we'll just create the cards for the books. Okay, so let's do it pretty quickly. So in the dashboard page here, so if books length, we'll just 0, we'll just make it as a conditional here, and we just add just the p tag, you have books, okay, just to demonstrate that, yeah, you actually have books. And now we need to go to top navigation. So let's go to top navigation. And here, this top navigation is already connected. So we can reuse the selector that we already created right here. So we have this selector, all books selector. So let's reuse it here. So has books. So if user has books, we want to display additional menu item. So we have this state books, and if length more than 0, then it means that it has books. So let's define it here. Has books is a boolean, and let's add it here. So if here has books, if has books, then I want to display another menu item. And this menu item is going to be books new. And we have add new book. And of course I need to import this all books selector. Let's have a look where I import from. Here it is. Just copy. Okay, so let's go back here in the browser, and here we go, add new book. So if we delete the book, we have different UI. So you got the idea, okay? But another thing that we actually need to fix, and that's what I want you to do as a home task, and we will fix it later, but not today. So as you can see, when I reload the page, first I see the call to action, then it disappears, this flickering effect. And that happens because right now the dashboard page has two states, 0 books and more than 0 books. But we have another state, loading books. Right? So when we make the request to the server, so try to implement it. Find a way to display the loading indicator, and if we have no books, then call to action. If we have books, then this kind of UI. But that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for your time and for your interest. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends. If you want to support my work, go to my Patreon account and become a patron, or make a one-time donation via PayPal. All contributions are very much appreciated, and join our community. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.